Hey, Steve, had some commentary based on my last question about four and five not being connected, and your response as the natural disconnect between emotion and logic. And so it's interesting looking at your post over the last week.
Hold on for
Go
just a
ahead.
moment. Okay, go ahead.
It's interesting looking at your post over the last week, how many folks logic and emotion don't connect, but at the same time they don't bounce to one of the other numbers to get to the other side of the number system to connect their emotion dominant versus logic dominant patterns.
Well, to have, I guess the problem that I see most often is not that people don't connect their logic and their emotions. It's that they don't connect their logic and their emotions to their physical reality. That you start, the typical thing people do is start with their hearts and then go to their head, or start with their head and then maybe include their heart. But both of those things are contrary to the pattern that I believe all life follows with elegance, which is to start with the physical reality and to go from there to the emotional realities. You think about a baby, and from there to developing maps of reality. If you try to develop a map going the other way, I think that it's easy to have the map you create poisoned by things you already knew. In other words, you haven't emptied your cup. If you emptied your cup, you have to start with the physical experience of reality. It's the only thing, it's the thing that you can be most confident in terms of your ability to cope. Otherwise, it's just ideas. So what people are doing and what people did was to say, 20%, the thing was, somebody said 20% of men are no longer looking for relationships, somebody said. Or actually 80% of men are no longer looking for relationships. And I said, where'd you get those statistics from? And the reply was well, it feels that way, or not everything can be quantified and blah, blah. But they quantified it. So what they're doing is they're saying, it feels to me, and then they make up a number or they grab a number that matches their feeling. And if you ask them to legitimize that number, then they feel resentful of you because you're invalidating their feelings. So to me, they're in a child space and they're not bringing the right tool to the job. If I had to make a choice, I would look for an accurate map based on my physical reality and an open heart that seeks wisdom. I think I would get further in life than if I created maps that were intellectually pleasing, but I did not error check them. The ideal situation is clearly to have all three centers. Does okay? Let me get started here today because we're already recording. I'm recording over to YouTube. That way, I'm not taking up any space on my computer, which I like. I like a lot. And let me make sure that Tanan Reeves is co-host, so she'll be able to do that. And welcome to Life Writing Live on Friday, the 13th. And I'll tell you, today is really special. To an open warning to you, we probably will not be able to do one next Friday because we're filming a movie and I need to be 100% present. If I had directed a movie before, then I might be able to say, "Oh yes, I'll be able to take this time." And if I knew the schedule, and so forth. But I just don't know, and I have to be totally present. So please excuse us for that. But I promise that whatever we learn, we're going to bring it back here. So, my name is Stephen Barnes. I'm the creator of these technologies, and I'm a writer and martial artist, and most importantly, husband and father. And my co-conspirator, my partner in crime, is here, the amazing Tanana Reeve. Tanana Reeve, Are you there, or are you there and ready
I'm
to show
not
yourself yet?
quite ready yet.
Okay, okay. So what I would like to do then is I'd like to start by asking people to unmute themselves and say hi to everybody. Let's start the day with energy. We should always start every day with the energy that will enable you to be the person you need to be, to do the things you need to do, to walk the path, to create your kingdom. So unmute and say hi.
Hi,
Hello,
everybody.
Hello, everybody.
everyone.
Good to see
Go.
Yay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And great. And Kevin here, I'm really glad to see you because you made a real contribution over on Life Right. And I actually want to go into that a bit. But what we're doing here today is we're looking at the we're looking at the question of how do you create a life of integrity, how to be the hero in your own in the story that you're writing, how to move towards a destiny that is pleasing to you and good for the world. We're specialized for writers and specialized for horror and science fiction writers, but anyone seeking to live their life in an artistic fashion, or someone who is interested in the process of creativity, is welcome here. If you're willing to just be a light in the world that sometimes seems to be swamped by darkness.
Including the creativity of creating a better life for yourself and others.
Absolutely. If the meaning of life is to escape suffering, embrace joy, and be of service, then everything that you're doing is some attempt to take a step along that path. If you're creating, if you're cooking an omelet, if you're cleaning house, if you're playing with the kitty, whatever it is that you're doing, paying bills, it's something somewhere along that continuum. There are people who honestly don't realize it is possible to have being happy as a goal. And they're miserable. I mean, it's like they will talk about how unhappy they are all the time. And then if you say, well, have happiness as a goal, then it's like, well, they'll quote somebody who says that, you can't have happiness as a goal because because you can't go directly toward happiness. If you just do things that make you happy, you'll end up miserable. Now that's true, but you find that out in about 5 minutes. If you do some searching, you say, I want to be happy. Let me do some searching. Buddhism or this says, don't aim directly at being happy, serve others, escape suffering, gain clarity, all of which are ways to decrease pain and increase pleasure. You can't go directly for it. That's accurate. It's a lot like you'll never get to earning a black belt if you don't learn to enjoy the classes. That what you want is to go into a class and find joy in the moment doing that, because that's what mastery is. You have to go through the flow state in order to reach mastery at anything. That flow state is what enables you to have complete immersion in your process. And it's the process that makes a difference. And mastery in that sense is finding the right process that, if I did this every day, I would become like my teacher. And as soon as you've committed to that path, you're on that road to mastery. Mastery then being a verb, not a noun, a vector, not a position. And what you will find if you meet great masters is that they don't care where you earned your belt. They care, well, what are you training in right now? Great writers are more likely to say, well, what are you working on right now? And in other words, they're on this journey along this path. And in order to find a mentor or a friend, and you will need them, you will need mentors, you will need people who know more than you about things. If you say to them, this is the territory that I see, I'm working on this, I'm studying this, I feel this about this, to the degree that they feel to themselves, this person is like me. You create that mentorship and you find people, experts, the whole thing, how much research should I do for a project? I say you research until you can ask an expert an intelligent question, especially one they haven't heard before. They love that. They absolutely love that. When you do that, they recognize themselves in you and treat you as if you're another person on the path. You're a writer like me. You're a martial artist like me. Maybe you're ahead of me, maybe you're behind me, but it's just the path. You see, it doesn't matter. So inevitably, the question when people say they have goals, my question is going to be, what is your daily process? What is your daily ritual? What do you do every day? Especially what do you do in the first hour of the day? Do you set yourself up to such that if you had 100 days like this, or 1,000 days like this, or 10 days like this, you would reach your goal? And once you have set up a schedule that will enable you to do that, and you have to figure it out so that you take luck out of the equation. Go with statistics. It's like, I know if I knock on 100 doors, I'm going to sell at least 2 vacuum cleaners. Well, then every day I'm going to knock on at least 100 doors. I trust the statistics. Now, if one of those doors opens, one of the first doors I knock on opens, and the person says, yes, I'd like to buy 5 vacuum cleaners, you did get a luck bump, but you weren't counting on it. You have to set yourself up so you don't need luck. And that's the whole life writing thing, where you write at least a sentence a day. You write 1 to 4 short stories a month. You polish and submit at least 1 story a month. You don't rewrite except editorial request. You read 10 times as much as you write, and you commit to repeating this process 100 times. There's nothing about luck in there. Luck has nothing to do with it. But every single person who's followed that process has gotten published. Now, I didn't promise how much money you were going to make. To make money at it demands a different set of principles. Now you have to start looking at things like Think and Grow Rich and so forth, so you understand how to constantly focus on figuring out how to sell what you've created, and then how to get more and more excellent what you've created, and then get better and better at marketing what you've created. Money, the quality of the thing that you do and the amount of money you make for the thing you do are not the same things. And the kid part of you wants to believe that if I just create art, and it's beautiful art, that the world will love me and shower me with money. Because that's the way it was when you were 10. But by the time you're 20, 30, you're competing with all the other people who are also geniuses. They were also loved by their neighborhoods, and their families applauded for them. And how are people supposed to decide which one they give their money to? At some point, you have to step out of being the genius child and start being the mom or dad who protects that genius child, who guides their career, makes them do their work, and then negotiates contracts and makes it clear to the people that you're dealing with that you will be treated with respect. Do not expect them to do that out of the niceness of their hearts. Not everybody knows that they have niceness in their heart. That's just the truth. You have to be willing to stand up for yourself. And the child part of you that creates, and the adult part of you that negotiates the contracts and deals with the business world, if you I'm not trying to be split personality here. I'm just saying that if you look at them as different aspects of the same thing, you are not going to make the mistake of getting into your feelings when you should be into your logic, or into your feelings and logic when you should be in your action. Action, emotion, and thought, all working together. That's how you get it done in any discipline there is. Tananari, let me shut up for a minute and let you regale us.
Oh, I don't know how much regaling I can do, but hello, everybody. To say we're excited about this upcoming shoot is an understatement. And just this past week, some really key pieces came together, like the production designer who's responsible for the whole look of the movie. We had one, but she came down with COVID and had never been able to get back up to speed. So we found someone literally at the last minute who is from the indie space. He was so excited. He had 9 whole days to prepare for the shoot. Oh my God, I get a prep day. I get an assistant. Most of the people we interview are like, this is it. But he had a whole different attitude. So that was actually very fun and refreshing. And we're looking forward to having a deep dive with
Yeah,
him right after this call.
I
Huh?
kind of think that he's used to being called in the night before a
I
commercial
think
shoot,
so.
and having to do it on the fly. So when somebody is that super competent, and he also knows our work,
Yeah.
and he loves horror, this is
Yeah.
perfect. It's a fan who can become a friend, who can contribute to what it is that we're doing. What?
There's a
What's going on?
life writer on our team.
That's
Felicia,
right.
our script
That's
supervisor, is a life writer. I don't, she's come to these Zooms, maybe not recently, but in the interview, she identified herself as a life writer. So that's super exciting, you know.
it really is. You know, you cast your bread upon the waters. We made a commitment 2 years ago to do this every week that we possibly could. I've only missed about three or four in over 2 years. And the point is to give to the community. And from the people that we're giving to here, there will be some of you who want to, hopefully, join the life writing group over on Circle, www.lifewrite.com, totally free, where we have a chance to coach you even more. And then some percentage of that are interested in some of the programs that we have. Yeah, of course we sell programs. Of course we do. We're not nuts, but we love being able to interact with people. I absolutely adore being able to interact with people. I've always done this. It's like my friends in the science fiction community called it getting Steved. Somebody had a problem. And I said, Steve, can I talk to you? And we would go in a corner and sit down someplace and I'd work on it. I love that. So Tananarive is a natural teacher. I'm a natural teacher. We love what we're doing. Any questions that you have about any results that we get, if we're getting results that you like, whether it's physical or emotional or tactical, financial, career-wise, we can tell you what we know about how we did it. And to the degree that what we say is useful to you, that we're delighted to answer any questions you have here for free. We have never said, "Oh, are you in one of my programs?" No, 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 no. Tell me what I can do for you, because for multiple reasons, including that the majority of what I know was given to me by teachers, and that I take that very seriously. They often just opened their doors and said, "Come in and take what you need, Steve," because they knew I was sincere and they knew that I needed it. Anything else, sweetheart?
Nope, I mean, we made a list of all the people working on this. I think about 30 people working on this. So the meeting we had this week with all the crew, where our cinematographer took them through the 3D renderings of shot by shot, including the lighting, which is a program I've never seen. Well, what do I know? I mean, in my limited experience of never having done this, I've never seen a director of photography use this kind of 3D modeling. It's made for photographers, but he just suited it for his purposes. Everybody was agog. And there were times I felt like I was literally watching the movie. Did you feel that way? Like I wanted to get popcorn while he was going this image, this image. Then she walks into the kitchen, and this happens. You're muted, love.
Don't you remember I said I wanted to direct the movie before we direct the movie?
Yeah. Well, we
So
have.
we've done that. We've looked at literally every single shot, forwards and backwards. Not only that, but we were looking to the question, how do we cluster these things together for the most efficient shooting? Because we're going to have to do some things out of order. We have our producer actually creating a shooting schedule
First
right
AD,
now.
yeah.
First AD. So let's look at this. What a director, Tananarive, years ago, you made a little movie by yourself called Lost, right?
I did.
And what what did you do?
I've always been inspired by my students. So teaching at Spelman and seeing them make little video projects as a part of their grade, and it's something I've continued at UCLA. I give students an opportunity to make a short film as their final project. And that kind of creativity on the fly inspired me to just kind of grab my iPhone, go out on a hiking trail for a few days where I literally was getting lost day after day. Some of the tears were real. Uh, and shoot like sort of a found footage style. I'm supposed to go to an office retreat. I can't find everyone. I'm walking in a circle. It's all a dream kind of thing. Spoiler. And I shot it, I starred in it, and I edited it. And it was the first time I used the words directed by Tananarive Due. And I've had people from Ava DuVernay to executives at Shudder say you should direct, but that didn't mean it didn't register to me. I didn't understand how to sort of cross the bridge from not being a director to being a director. And it was only because of this opportunity that I now feel like I have a much better idea. I mean, part of it is just the teaching comes in handy because you are guiding a group of people. The community organizing comes in handy because of Scare Up the Vote, where all of a sudden there's like a bunch of people working for you toward the same cause, and you don't even know everybody's names and where do they even come from, which is kind of the phase we're in now with our movie. Um, and then learning how to funnel all of that into a shared creative vision, because the story is the thing. But the screenplay is just a template to make a movie. And understanding the difference between those two, I mean, I now have a much better understanding of that saying that says there's a movie you write, the movie you shoot, and the movie you edit. We are the ones making the choice to change this scene, to take this out, to change this dialogue, because it better suits the shooting schedule or the way we've had a different idea about how to convey the same emotions that will take less time to shoot and all that stuff. And it's just fascinating. I love every second of it. And I would love to do it again. And now I know how, so it's a big deal to feel like I've learned something at this big age. I've learned how to do something new is just super, super exciting.
Let's, I think that one of the best things we can do, because this is such a clear moment of, it's a shock point. Somebody was talking about using the Enneagram, you can see that behind me, which a lot of people use for understanding personality. But what it really is, the Enneagram of personality is only about 2% of what the Enneagram is. It's mostly a map of process. It's a paper computer. And as you follow around the rim of it, there's a gap between stage 4 and stage 5. And in using the hero's journey, stage 4 would be the gathering of allies and powers. The 0 point would be being confronted with a challenge. That's at the top. The you can't see it right now. The top of the triangle. Okay, being confronted with a challenge. The 1 would be the rejection of the challenge, usually due to fear. Okay, so you look at the fear. What am I afraid of here? And the 2 would be accepting the challenge. If you don't accept the challenge, you bounce back up. And a lot of people never do accept the challenge of, for instance, becoming a fully adult. And so they're constantly challenged with things in their lives, and their fear stops them. That's the model. The 3 would be the road of trials. That's the actions that you take between you and where you are, where you need to be in order to achieve. The 4 is the gathering of allies and powers. That when you start, you don't have all the skills that you need to finish. You kind of assume if you already had the skills you needed to do it, you'd already be doing it. So the 4 is a matter of, well, what do you need? Do you need allies? Do you need people? You need extra sets of hands. Do you need skills that you didn't have the time to develop? Do you need skills that you didn't have the ability to develop? You can actually compensate for a lack of skill, a lack of quote unquote talent, or a lack of resources simply by building the right team. So the people who think that they can succeed just by getting good at what they do are unwise. They have not actually paid attention to how people move their lives forward. On the other side of a gap is the confrontation with evil in which you are defeated. Now, it doesn't have to be evil like, Snidely Whiplash, or Ernst Stavro Blofeld. Evil in this sense could be your own shadow self. What stands between you and your ability to fully shine. The things it could be shame. It could be any number of different things, false beliefs, stuff that, false ego, stuff you have to destroy in your ego in order to move forward. But whatever that is, it's going to happen. So these things, if I was to look at this in terms of when somebody said, would you like to direct your script, The Keeper? And Tananarive and I kind of looked at each other and it's like, tell me more. What would be necessary? Now, we watched Lucina Fisher make our short film, what's the name of it? Danger Word. Tananarive had done her thing. And the truth is that contained within Tananarive's short film that she made by herself, if you do that right, you you have the beginning of the entire skill set to make a $200 million movie. In other words, the director needs to have a vision and they need to have enough understanding of the technology that's going to be used to be able to express that vision. If you post that video that you made on YouTube, you have then done distribution. You understand one means of distribution. All you have to do at that point is upgrade that. I need a better camera person. I need a better scriptwriter. I need a better actor. I need better distribution. So you look at the department heads, you start looking at the credits on movies and saying, well, what are these people doing? And you won't understand it because, best boy, what exactly is best boy? I still don't know
I
exactly
still don't
what
know what
best,
that is.
key grip, is that somebody who
We
actually,
finally will
oh,
learn what a best boy is.
absolutely. So the trick is to learn enough to ask intelligent questions. So the if there are YouTube videos on directing and you watch a dozen of them, you'll start seeing patterns. Okay, what does James Cameron say about this? What does Spike Lee say about this? What does Ava DuVernay say about this? What are they all saying about this? All right, then we sat down with people we knew who were professional directors. Once I had a sense of the overview of what it was and what we got both from people who we trusted and knew and who loved us, and people like James Cameron who did an instructional video for what was it, Mastery? What is that? What's the name of that course that
Oh,
you got from me?
yeah, I forget what it's called. Master class, I think.
Masterclass, that's right. So looking at that, and James Cameron and these other people would say, the most important thing about being a director is to hire a really good director of photography and to get to know them. Okay. The director of photography asks you, what is it you have in your mind? And then starts breaking down how we could get this, what's necessary to get this on the screen. Win Rosenfeld, the president of Monkey Paw, because we've done business with Monkey Paw and we've done friendly things with Jordan, who's a wonderful, wonderful guy, Jordan Peele. We've had the blessing of having Zoom lunches with Win that started during COVID that we still do from time to time. Now, not as frequently because, the universe expands. But his insistence was the only way to compensate for lack of experience is exhaustive pre-planning. Exhaustive pre-planning. So and Tanana even knows that this is the truth. One of the first things I want to do is build a model. What's the floor layout of
Yeah, he
of
really
this of
needed to
that?
see the set in his head.
Yeah, I couldn't see the set in my head, so I could not dream. I could not imagine what this was. I could read bits of the script, but no matter how many times I read the script, I could not hold a vision of this entire process in my mind. My brain doesn't work that way. But I was able to find an architecture set for kids. It cost $75. There's a bunch of pages and plastic walls. So I had Tananari give me a rough layout, and then I built that layout in this architecture design kit, and we put it on the dining room table. So now I could start to see what this was. But it wasn't until we were interviewing employees, crew, and this kid named Kinzen Takahashi, is it?
Yes,
Showed us
he's
a
almost
piece
30.
yeah, kid. He showed us a piece of software that was designed for photographers that he had adapted to what a director of photography does, which is to look at every scene and build a 3D model on computer of the entire house, the entire set, and then be able to walk through it and see where all the shadows are and the lighting and the characters and literally block everything. And the instant I saw that during the interview, I immediately sent a note to Tanana and said, hire him.
You're hired, kid. You're hired.
You're
And
hired. You're
we've
hired.
spent days doing 3-hour sessions with him. We probably spent 12 hours at least with him,
For a
painstakingly going through
15
every
minute
line.
movie.
Oh, am I
So
muted?
let's, I don't think so.
Oh, going through every line in the script. So by the time we presented this to the rest of the crew, they're like, wow. So anyway.
Yeah, so it's the idea of now we have a sense that it will take about an hour for every minute of screen time just to block out what we're doing. If you have a brilliant young cinematographer who has this kind of software, we now are starting to quantify these things. We need this much time, this much energy, this much money, these many people. We're building this up. That thing about what mastery is, the understanding, getting your basics in place to the level of unconscious competence, and then committing to it. By the time we're finished with this shoot, we will have a greater, a larger percentage of the skills and perspectives needed by a professional director at awareness. Some of those things will have gone to unconscious competence, but at least we will be aware of them such that we can say, okay, if we're doing, because our plan is to do a short and then roll that short into a feature. So the short is self-contained, but it's a piece of a larger story. It begins and ends, but we extracted it from a larger story. So we're not just making the short, we're going to school. We're going to film school. We're using this as an opportunity to learn the things we would need to learn such that the gap between where we are in a feature is no larger than the gap between where we were in making a short. And then with the additional confidence, oh, okay, this is what we do. We gather a tribe. What was it you said about the thing that you were going to enjoy the most when it comes to artists and tribes? It's
Is
not
the,
a,
the high level collaboration. I mean, I can't tell you how gratifying it was to see so many skilled people, like whatever their area is, looking at the work that the cinematographer had done, who's his own level of skill, adding their comments, their thoughts, their questions, their experience, all toward the same vision. I mean, that's the thing I've really been craving. Steve and I do a lot of collaborating, but I've always wanted to be a collaborative director in the sense that, yes, we're leading the vision. It's our story. We're the boss. I mean, if you watch the TV show The Studio, the director is always the boss. It's like the everyone is like bowing at the director's feet. I haven't had that experience yet, but
now we have somebody here today, J. Michael Hayes,
oh, hey, Jesse's
who
here.
actually worked with
He's also
us.
a director.
Yes, he's also a director, but he also worked with us on the radio play that we did. So the
Yes.
radio play was another warm up for this. Would you, J. Michael, would you be willing to say a little bit about how you see the process, and what of creating a radio play? How does that relate to the things I was talking about?
Well, I think to what you're both. Can you hear me? Yes. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Wasn't sure.
Sorry.
I think to what both of you were just talking about, collaboration is key. Uh, Understanding that someone is in the driver's seat, as it were, right? But that everybody is contributing to the creation of this thing. And somebody was just saying the other day, it's about the happy accidents that happen along the way. Oh, I was watching Light and Magic, which is a documentary about the development of industrial light and magic for Lucas company. And they were just saying that with digital, sometimes it took out the happy accidents, and recently with new ways that they're doing digital, it sort of inserted that opportunity back in, right? And so in doing what
Would you mind? Would you mind telling the group exactly what you did, for this, so they can understand the role that you played in the
it,
creation of the Walker?
It was huge.
so I just wanted to make it happen for you all. So I came on as sort of the producer of the audio aspect of it. Tanana Reeve directed the sessions, the recording sessions, and then I had to cut things together and make it work because we were dealing with actors who are doing things at different times. But in the creation of that, there was an opportunity to find little magic moments, or we found things that were missing, and how do we replace those? And sometimes in those little spots, that's where you get like this little magic, you know. So I think that one thing that I felt like with both project that I just have been working on, new film that I'm working on, and the audio thing with you all, it is having a clear vision, but having just enough flexibility in it, and observing enough as you're going through the process to not miss the opportunities that are happening around it. Does that make sense? Am I being
Yeah,
clear?
it's good.
It makes total sense. I'm going to actually put the video link to the Walker in here for people who would like to hear our first, who'd like to experience our first radio play, which we're very proud of. I'll put it over on YouTube as well. It was an amazing opportunity. I mean, just seriously. And I don't know. I don't know if we would have been ready to do a short film if we hadn't done that radio play. I think it was that important.
And Steve, just to jump in one more time, I think that go back. I'm such a believer in the collaborative nature of a team, and tonight when you said collaborative director, that's definitely how you were in this process, and how I envision myself trying to be, because you realize just that value that each person brings to the table. There was something that I learned from some people that I worked with in the past, that is, surround yourself with the best you can find. And even if you're somebody who is more image driven, that's still just going to make you look great, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's in favor for you to not be the best at everything, right? You
Right.
find people who fill in those gaps. And your allies and powers, is that the stage?
Yeah, it's allies and powers and or the mastermind.
Yeah.
That's what's so
No matter
great.
how you look at it. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say real quickly. Am I interrupting you, Jesse?
No. I mean, go ahead. Say what you're saying.
Just that, for instance, the production designer we're meeting today, when we realized our production designer had COVID and she was saying she could do it, but we're like, I don't think she can do it. We had to make that tough choice. We need to move on. And Steve was very eager to come up with a plan where we could just do it ourselves. Like, we're very lucky that the location we chose is very close to what we wanted. Like, let's clutter it up. Let's bring in someone. So we came up with a backup plan. And when we presented that to our exec, they were like, oh, no, no, no. We would never expect you. You're the directors. We want you focused on directing. No, no, no. But for us, it was so freeing to know we could do it. So there's nothing to panic about. This is going to happen because if
Not
no,
only that, Tananarive, you understand that it was another one of those examples of magic.
true.
When we set ourselves up so that we didn't need it, we saw how we do it anyway, the right person just appeared.
And this is where I'm circling back to your point, Jesse.
Okay.
I am loving the idea that we're about to get on the phone with this guy and all the things that Steve and I were trying to work out. Well, how are we going to do this? And where are we going to get this? And how we get to bring in another voice into that conversation. And he's going to have ideas, and hopefully his ideas will be better than ours. And he'll also recognize when we have good ideas, which has been
I
our
mean,
experience with the cinematographer.
I think of
we
it like
wanted
music.
to.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
I was saying, I just think of it like music, right? Like everybody's bringing another harmony to the
Yes.
equation. Sometimes there might be a funny note and you got to realign, right? But the funny note might be your own, for that matter, and you just realize, all right, I got to shift. But I also think that what you just talked about is so crucial, and I feel like this in the film that I've been working on, is that contingencies on contingencies, right? Like, that you have a backup, right? So worst case scenario, quote unquote, right? You Steve can handle that. And that gives you the peace of mind
Yes.
and to be able to then focus on the task in front of you. Even better if there are people that are serving those roles. But if there aren't, and even if there are, knowing that there are fallbacks in place beforehand, you don't need everything to go perfectly. That's going to save you a lot of stress and allow you to then be in the moment, I think, more so.
Mm-hmm.
So the different models that we talk about here, the magic formula, hero's journey, the steps of Think and Grow Rich. My idea is you map out your process on multiple models, and every time you map it a different way. In other words, if I look at this like, well, what's the M? I need a map or a model how to do this. Let me talk to some people who've done it. What is the process? What do I need to go through? Oh, you need to have a director of photography. You need to hang out with them. Fine. And you will learn. What are the actions I need to take? My whole thing is that there was a chunk of work that needed to be done. I could not even define what all that work was. But if I could figure out what 1% of it was, let me just do that 1%. And that will create greater clarity for what comes next. So it was like every day, 1%. And it never failed me. I could always find something to work on. And the process of doing that brought me allies and understandings that clarified what was still ahead. Gratitude. If gratitude is the antidote for stress, antidote for fear, this is such a major project and it could be so life-changing that it would be easy to become terrified. I mean, absolutely easy to be terrified. And what I wanted was to be able to do a hell of a good job and have fun in the process. You know, to make sure to add and have fun in the process so that it's not a matter of doing a hell of a good job and beating yourself to death, but actually enjoying this arguably once in a lifetime opportunity. I don't know whether or not this will come back. I don't know that it's going to lead to anything else. So let me enjoy this. Let me really get into this. Let me relish this. Let me be able to look back on this years from now and say, yeah, we did it. We did it right. What about clear intentions? A leader must have vision and energy. And what the people want to know is, if I follow you, am I going along a path that I wanted to be on anyway? That you may have specialized knowledge or greater ability. So I do not necessarily want to sit at the poker table, but I'll give you stakes. I'll give you money to bet for me. And I talked to Tananari about this. I said, do you want a seat at the table? I ain't playing slot machines, but poker is okay, because poker, you're not playing against the house, you're playing against the other people. So if the suckers play slot machines, the people with a little bit more awareness, but also awareness of their limitations, will find a good poker player and back their play. But if we want to take the real chance, we have to have a seat at the table. Now, there's a level above that, which is creating your own table, of course. But a seat at the table is enough to have taken us decades to get to. We've got a seat at the table right now. And even if our stakes are small, only a 15-minute movie, people looking at us and saying, okay, kid, what are you going to do? And I won't say who it was, but we had a conversation with somebody who is a very serious filmmaker who had more than implied that if we do a good job here, he will help hook us up to people with money to make a feature. So this is for all the marbles, literally. So my intention is clear: to create a movie that we could use to leverage ourselves into a feature, a short that we could use to leverage ourselves into a feature. At the same time, to create an opportunity for my son to have a chance to act, for us to direct. If we do a feature, bring my daughter into it, who's been doing her acting chops, to create a situation where we can create kind of a family of people who we trust, like, Kinsen. Somebody was talking about how, we do a bigger movie, we, get an award-winning cinematographer. I don't know, because if his cinematography is good enough, but we find that we have a common language with him, that we can communicate to him, that we like his process. I think that a person of just, well, good skills can do a better job for you if the communication is clear than a person with superb skills who is a stranger. In terms of giving you what it is that you need, I think communication is critical. And that may not be true absolutely, but in terms of me feeling comfortable, and if you feel comfortable and safe, don't you come up with greater creativity? It seems to me that you do. So that intent is going to be important, to make a great film, a great calling card, and have fun in the process.
Jesse.
And then this,
Oh,
huh?
I'm just jumping in real quick. I had a quick question for Jesse because you've made a couple shorts now, right? Just one back to back, pretty much.
So made one halfway through the current one that we're shooting.
Okay, you're shooting right now and you're here. What the hell?
Well, so we shot for 3 days, and now we have a little break.
Oh,
and
okay.
We'll be shooting in New York in September for the last 2
I
days
see.
of our shoot.
I was just wondering because it's been a long time since I've been on set in any kind of capacity where I felt like I had a voice. So, is there like one piece of advice, like something you wish you had done in just the shoot you just did, or even maybe your first shoot, that you want to pass on as a piece of advice just on the set?
So yes, I mean, 2 things. One that I learned from the first shoot, and then one that my wife, who is co-writer and co-producer of this current film that we're working on, pointed out that she felt like was a strength in what we just did. The first thing, which I learned from as a sort of mistake of the first film, right, was get extra footage, right?
Oh yeah, extra coverage.
If you
Yes.
got what you need, get more. And I used to, in design, I used to tell people, if you're say I did a lot of album covers and things like that. So if you're shooting a photo for that, get more than you think we're going to use. I can always trim down, but it's harder to recreate what isn't there, right? So there was one shot from our first film, which is an amazing shot, and we got it for just a little bit shorter than I would have liked. It still works in the film, but it would have been more powerful with maybe 4 or 5 seconds more of space, but we just didn't have it. You could even slow it down a little bit to drag it out, but you don't have what you don't have, right? So this round, just get tons and tons of extras. And that was a 6-minute film. The first one was a 6-minute film that we had 6 hours of footage, and there were still, opportunities I wanted more. So that was a lesson we learned, took that into the new one. And then something to echo what Steve was just
By
saying.
the way, Jesse, before you go further, would you consider that to be a very, very rough rule of thumb to get an hour of footage for every minute of screen time?
So in my very limited experience, that feels right.
Okay, it's a very rough.
Yeah,
it's a very rough thing.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I don't know once you move into a 2-hour film.
I understand. Please continue on.
And then Steve, you talked about clarity, and when my wife and I had a debrief after our 3 days of shooting 2 weeks ago, she said the strongest thing that I did was going in there with a clarity of vision. And, I definitely felt like, with The Walker, for example, the audio drama that we did, Steve, you had such a clarity of vision on the story. Tananarive, you had a clarity of vision of the feel that you wanted, which is, a large part of the director's responsibility is that
That's
feel.
Right.
And again, watching this Industrial Light and Magic documentary, hearing George Lucas talk, one thing that he always had with Star Wars was just this clarity of vision, and so our third day on the set of the shooting that we just did was our spaceship scene. It's an Afrofuturism film, and it's across time, and at the end of the film, they're in the future. And so we got to do fun things like create a little Star Trek style sliding door and all these kind of things. But one of the biggest things was the actors were coming up to me with the classic sort of "what's my motivation" question. right? And I was really able to clearly answer that in this scene, it's at a point in the future where there is no stress, no pressure, where people are able to just create and be. It's a spaceship of predominantly Black and queer individuals, so it was a space where those people could just be free to be themselves. And I said, so just try to imagine how you would hold your face, how you would walk, knowing that that was the space you were in. And they were all able to immediately click into what that meant to them, and that was really the driving force behind that scene, was just representing that kind of energy. And so
That's
being
great.
able to go in and have that clarity, the actors knew what they needed to do, the DP knew what the mood was of the camera movements, that sort of solved a lot of the work.
Look, I'm going to. Shell has her hand up, and I would like very much, just in case it's a question for you. It might be. I don't know.
Thank
So,
you so
Shell, would
much.
you would you unmute yourself, Shell, and come on? And what can we do for you?
Yeah, hi. Actually, it's a comment that's springing off the current conversation in terms of uh, tips learned along the way. One of the great things I learned in the production vein on the first film I was on, which I think of as the biggest deferred picture of all time. It was Hollywood. It was 1970 something or other. And I was an assistant to the producers who had money, but not enough money for this vast project. We had stars. We had anyhow. The key thing that I learned is what they did was they put the money. They didn't have money to pay the crew or the cast, except for even some of the stars. I think were taking either massive cuts or no money at all. But there were various trade-offs. A lot of the actors also, in order to get their role in the film, were working on crew. So what I learned was they put the money into the food. If everybody was bitching and aggravated and they were pissed off with everything that was going on, give them a great lunch, and things mellowed out.
Amen.
Okay.
Freaking man. I was just thinking about the weight I'm going to gain on the set. Because you
I
think I try not to pay attention to those crafty trays and those snack packs, but when the stress hits, you start munching.
So quality on the nutritional level to keep bodies healthy, get good food, put the money into the food, and solve a lot of problems. A lot
I
of people
think you
work for
are. I think you're 100% correct. I
Agreed.
think that crafts is great. I think that let's just find out if we have more questions here so that we can take, because everything that we're doing here relates to everything we've been talking about: how to plan, how to keep your mood up, how to communicate, how to create. This is, I do believe that filmmaking and directing is a level up from writing. I do believe that to be true. It's arguable, and I think that the very, very best people in any field are probably as good as people in other fields. But what directors have to know is not just story, but how to convert story to images, and to be able to talk with the technical people, and also to be able to manage actors and a crew.
And
So
also
there are
just to
additional
be
human skills.
Sorry, also just the navigating the system. I mean, if you're an independent director, you navigated some kind of system to get that money. But if you're working with studios and you've managed to get a seat at that table and gotten them to trust you, and we had our first meeting where we had to defend our shoot date to our financiers, and that was really one of the first days, like, oh my God, I am a director, because this is the part that a lot of people can't handle, is dealing with the business aspect in addition to the creative aspect. And I'll shut up.
No, it's okay. Don't you dare. So, are there any other questions? Otherwise, there's something in particular I wanted to do before I open things in general, but I just wanted to see. All right, then what I want to do is to bring Kevin on, because Kevin
From our
did something really kind of fun. Yeah, that's right. There you go, Kev. And I'm going to spotlight you. And what you did was you gave us over on the life writing site a thing about that from Daniel Pink. Okay, basically about how to make decisions. And what directors have to do is make decisions. So before I go through the 5 steps of this, which I think are just really great, how did you come across this and why did you decide to share it? I think it was a great idea.
I um I came across it on LinkedIn. So I follow Daniel Pink and a few other authors on
Hmm.
LinkedIn, and I thought it was I thought it was good to share in that as writers we're kind of world builders. So you know you're basically the god of that story. So
Yes.
um, and I think a lot of good stories come down to the decisions that people make in those stories.
Well,
Uh,
in a lot of ways, life does. So I'm
yes.
gonna share my screen and then go over. Let's see, where is it? Okay.
But I
So
thought
as you can
I
see,
thought some of the stuff might even be interesting as a conversation between the characters in your story.
oh, sure. Anything. It says making decisions is hard. You face hundreds a day, some small, some life altering. Here are 5 evidence-based strategies to help you make better decisions and stop overthinking. So the first one is to ask yourself, what would I tell my best friend? Now, the value of this is huge. I mean, my version of that has often been, what would you want your most beloved child to do? Because when it comes to like abusive relationships or doing things that are damaging to you, sometimes we don't love ourselves enough to make the right decision, or it's hard. It's going to require something that's hard. But it's like if you tell somebody else to go out and run 5 miles, it's a lot easier than actually going out and running 5 miles, even if running 5 miles is a thing you need to do. So by looking at it as, what would you ask, what would you tell somebody else, you can you can get around that. You can short circuit the part of us that tries to be lazy. 2, use a successor test. This is for a a boss at a job. If you had to quantify your job so that somebody else is going to come in and do it, how would you describe your job to them? How would you tell them the things that need to be done? It's getting ready to make yourself obsolete. If you can't, if you've got a business and you cannot make yourself obsolete, you don't own a business. That business owns you.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Shift from how to why. Now, we've talked about this, the RPM system, that you have to know what you want and why you want it. Most people barely know what they want. They just have a to-do list of what they need to do every day. And unless you understand how everything on your to-do list relates to your what, why are you doing it? But if you're clear on your what, then the next question is, why do you want to do it? Because your why is your emotional juice. Your why is what keeps you going. In another way, it's discipline and routine that keep you going. Yeah, I understand that. But being able to motivate yourself to always know why you're doing anything that's on your schedule. And if the answer better not be to pay these lousy bills. If you can say, I'm going down into the coal mines to support my family so that my kids can go to school and have a better life, now you have meaning. Buddhist monks would give the assignment of cleaning the toilets as a way of teaching people that there's no innate value or attraction to doing anything other than what we give to it. So if you look at cleaning toilets as service, you have whipped a huge aspect of life because you're prepared to be satisfied doing anything. I mean, changing a diaper, I changing a diaper was never an onerous burden to me because it meant that my baby was healthy enough to crap. It's like clean diapers, dirty diapers means healthy babies is the way I literally looked at it. So there was always a certain celebration involved.
Can I mention one thing, Steve? Too?
Please, please.
Um, One of the tools that we use a lot in terms of design thinking is something that Toyota came up with called the 5 whys.
Uh-huh.
So it's asking why 5 times. Why did this happen? And you give an answer. Well, why was that? So you kind of go down this tree. Um, and at the end of those different five whys, you find out the real motivation instead of just the surface motivation.
It's
It's
certainly
kind of
realer.
an interesting tool to try.
Well, look, the deeper the question, the more times you have to ask it. There's a process called spiritual autolysis, which is basically a way of addressing the most important questions in life. Those important questions being, who am I and what is true? And what is said is that if you spend an hour every day just asking yourself those two questions, who am I and what is true, it would take you about 2 years to get to the end of it and be in that state that is referred to variously as enlightenment. So those are profound questions. Easy questions like, why did you slip? 5 stages will probably take you to something that's really, really good and really, really useful. Because there was a banana peel. Why weren't you watching where you were going? Because ordinarily I trust that people aren't going to leave banana peels. Why did you think that it's reasonable to trust that way? I said, well, because it has always worked out for me in the past. So my past experiences led me to making a bad assumption that led to me slipping and falling on a banana peel. Let me not make those kinds of assumptions anymore. Okay.
And
Before,
we've
go ahead.
used that, we've used that, we've used the whys a lot in terms of looking at how our parents, the life they've lived, influenced the decisions we're making now, as
Well,
well as the
here's the
grandparents.
thing.
Yeah, so it's
If you do what your grandparents did, you will probably survive. It's as simple as that. This is why people are very conservative about things like that. Survival values that have worked for your parents and your grandparents and your great grandparents. I would trust those before I would ever trust it's fashionable. It's fashionable to do this over here. I heard, for generations now, I'm old enough to have watched several generations going through this. Every generation thinks that they can remake the rules for relationships. Oh no, we're not like that anymore. Oh no, that's not. No, you just got a different fashion. You put a different. Instead of a cherry, you put a strawberry on top. It's. You go ahead and think that you've completely reinvented something that's been going on since before there were human beings. Have fun with that. You want to go deep until you find principles that work in multiple arenas and have worked over vast periods of time over multiple cultures. When you find that stuff, like the 3 gates, asking yourself, is it true, is it kind, is it useful? You can find the 3 gates in versions of them, over the centuries in many different cultures. That's the kind of thing where nobody invented that. That was just observed. It's like nobody invented the moon. It was observed, and all these different cultures saw it. So whenever I see something like that, I pay special attention. Number 4, forget passion. Ask this instead. Where can I make the biggest contribution? Remember, what's the purpose of life? To escape suffering, embrace joy, and be of service. So when you are concerned with making a contribution, you get out of your poor little me. It's the same way you can be sick, but if your cats are scratching at the door for food, you get out of bed and you get them food. When your kids need something, it doesn't matter that you're tired. You do what's necessary to be done. You find the part of you that understands that we're not just here to take care of ourselves, we're here to take care of others as well. And if you feel that, then you actually can get a spark of energy when you help others. You say, I am depressed, then go to a pediatric oncology clinic, in clown makeup. Make those kids laugh. Get out of yourself. Get out of yourself. Contribute to others. It's one of the greatest ways to tap into energy. And then 6 here, or 5 here, the hell yes or no rule. Okay, if opportunity doesn't make you say hell yes, it's a no. This is following that passion. Now, you need to be sure that you're listening to the right voice inside you. So if you're an adult, one would assume that you would test this in small ways, see how it comes out, because you might have some voices inside you that are saying hell yes for negative things. So you're going to need to learn how to ignore those voices. But when you find the right voice that says hell yes, and it's something that's positive, that will move your life forward, that is an act of power and courage, clarity, go for it. And I think that a lot of us, what we're really looking for is to get enough connection with our instincts that we can kind of zen our way through life. But you do have to learn to figure out which part of me am I listening to. So I just wanted to thank Kevin for all of that, because that was a good share in that sense. So let's go back and have people raise their hands if they want to, if they'd like to contribute, say something, ask a question, offer something that's been happening in their lives. And the rule always is volunteer or you will be voluntold. So Daniel Rowe. Rowe? I never figured out how to pronounce your last name. Where is Daniel? Oh, Daniel, there he is.
Yes, I am here. Hello.
Okay, so Daniel, what I need to know from you is, are you reading your goals twice a day?
Once.
Okay, so I need you to read your goals twice a day. Secondly, describe as clearly as possible, but briefly, your morning ritual. Because what your thing is you keep getting scattered. You keep deflecting yourself and other things. So if you write down the goal and then you ask yourself every week, what are the three most important things for me to do? And then every day, what are the three most important things for me to do today? And then you do it and you keep track of that, you'll be able to see how you get off track and what triggers you to get off track. But the most important thing is that you have a morning ritual, which you could look at that and you'd say to yourself, God, if I did this for 100 days, I'd change my life. So what is your morning ritual?
I started doing the Wim Hof techniques. I don't know if you use them in America
No,
too.
they're popular here, but go ahead.
And it works because it works if it's the first thing I do with the cold showers, it really makes me wake up. And the next thing I started yoga again. I'm doing a kind of yoga that's called shadow yoga. It's a mixture between Tai Chi and Ashtanga yoga.
Okay.
And breath
So
work
let
helps.
me ask you a question. Can you chant your affirmations while you do that, or is the breath control important enough that you really can't?
The breath is more important.
Okay, so what are you doing for your incantation? You need to be doing something that allows you to take your affirmations at the same time that you're doing physical intensity. Now, we've talked about this for months, so I want you to get the joke that it's still hard for you. If you're not doing it, get the joke that somehow you've distracted yourself from that. So are you doing it?
I'm avoiding it because what I want to do is do the breath work and an energy work, and I want to do the affirmation work separately.
Well, that's
And
fine.
that's
You can do the affirmation work separately while you're taking a walk. Do it in motion. You are
okay.
you are a disobedient student, Daniel.
I know, totally.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
I need you, if you're going to get,
I want to be
if you're,
right.
I know. And so I'm just going to keep focusing on what are you doing? So, because then the next step would be, all right, so what are your affirmations and what are your goals? So, because I know that those are going to keep shifting because you don't believe in yourself and love yourself enough to be able to go straight forward. Your goals are going to need to change the context of your life. That's why I really supported you going to South Africa, because I want to get you away from the situation that you're in, because it reinforces the old Daniel. So I want you to get back on that. And when you've got, so walking is enough. I mean, especially power walking if you're holding dumbbells or something like this. But you need to walk while you're doing your affirmations, because then all you need to do is increase the intensity of the physical or the intensity of the speech, and you will program yourself more deeply. This is especially important for you because it's so hard for you to do it. Okay?
Yeah, but things are changing. So thanks for kicking my ass. Things are changing. And it's crazy. I didn't believe it because I'm my dream becomes more important than myself, and I'm not saying that out of inferiority complexes, but my dream is more important than Daniel, and that's a very crazy feeling
Well,
because
it's a
I
great,
will be dead one day. I realize if the dream is about serving people, it's much more important than myself, and I'm not
yes,
devaluating myself.
that's right.
It's a,
So look at it this way. If you're doing martial arts, you can't punch somebody and be thinking about you. To punch them, you
absolutely,
have to be thinking about them, or you have to be thinking about the interaction. Same with throwing
yeah,
them. Same with making love. If you're making love to somebody and your attention is on yourself, you're missing the whole thing. Okay. Now your
yeah,
attention can be on the us or on her or him,
mm,
but you have to take your attention off yourself, or you're going to miss it. So the I, the feeling, Bruce Lee would say, I do not hit, it hits. The I is the part of you that it is observing. The person you really are is not Daniel. Daniel is the role that you're playing. It's your body, it's your name, it's your this, it's your that. But if you think deeply enough, you will catch glimpses of another
mm.
part of you that is observing you. And that part of you, I can guarantee you, if you look at anything you did that was brilliant in your life, if you made a list of the 10 smartest things you ever did, the 10 best things you ever did, you were never there. It happened. And you looked at it afterwards and said, Keanu Reeves, whoa, what happened there?
What
You weren't
what I'm
there.
also learning is like in martial arts training yesterday, I realized the techniques work when there is no enemy to defeat, but it's like letting go and going my path, and suddenly the enemy falls off. Don't know how to explain it, but it's very important to get rid of
No,
my
that's
enemy.
fine. Look, man, when we were watching our actors auditioning for this movie, I noticed that I stopped watching either one of them. I focused my attention on the space between them. I watched the
Yeah,
way they were manipulating the space, and that told me what I had. It's like,
yeah,
oh, that's where the magic is. So the magic, when you realize I am not my memories, I am not my emotions, I am not my values, I am the space in which my life is happening. I am not the clouds, I am the sky. Okay?
makes total
When
sense.
when you make that shift, you can start letting go, and when you can laugh at the way you've presented yourself without feeling ashamed of it, because that's going to be
Yeah,
your task. Because to be able to laugh at that, but to understand that you are magnificent, you have all the potential in the world. It's just, let me let go of the things that are not me, are not really me, that are not it. Okay. And so this is going to be your process. The morning ritual is the way I can check on you as you create it. Because I could look at it very clearly. I say, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. It's easy. So you have to do it until I say, okay, if you want me to be your teacher, which you do, you have to put your ritual together until the basics are there. And then all you have to do is say, I did it or I didn't do it. Because what I'm telling you is if you create your morning ritual properly, in 30 days, you're a different man. So we're just trying to create. That's right. That's right. That's it. That's what you want. Yes, sir. 3 bags full. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 3 bags full. Do not, as long, you can stop being my student at any moment,
I
and that's
know,
fine. And that
I
is
know.
important for you to at some point reject me to know that you're going to do something else. But while you are, empty your cup and do what the hell I say until you're ready to go.
I
There's the
hope you do.
door.
I hope you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. I know just what
Good.
I'm doing. And more importantly, you know what I'm doing. You will know when to walk away.
But
Okay?
I just know you're quite I think you're coming along quite well in life. So
Life is pretty
so
good.
but
Anyway,
must
so okay, so that's good. You've got your marching orders. So let's
thank you
see.
so much.
Who else who's not uh Shell, Goldstein, Anna, Stephen Bauer, Jaime, Shikaja. Shikaja?
Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Shikaja.
Yes,
Okay, I am fine. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. I'm getting better. Thank you, day by day.
Excellent. So, what can we do for you today?
Um, I'm actually, it's going to sound a little bit strange, but I'm actually, how can I'm in a repair process.
What are you
Being
repairing?
here, yeah, I'm doing some repair work, and being here
What?
for me is a part of that process.
Okay, so what are you repairing specifically?
A lot of a number of things, all of me. I'm repairing on a physical level. I'm repairing some things emotionally, and I am trying to realign myself with my highest good right now. And
Okay.
being here gives me access to people who are progressing in certain ways, in healthier ways.
We are committed to progressing. How much we're succeeding at that may be a different question, but I believe the people, why would we be here if we were not sincere about trying to get better?
Yes.
All of us. So, what are you doing? The fastest way to move forward is to change what you're doing physically. It's not to think about it or feel about it. What is it that you need to do to raise your physical game to the next level?
Well, I'm working on, I'm in PT for a few things right now. But so, and part
You're
of it is
you're in what?
PT, physical therapy.
Okay, go ahead.
Um, Part of it is the work that I'm doing. I teach and I love teaching. I love teaching art, but it demands a lot from me. And
Uh-huh.
sometimes that literally, well, can I say it? Literally, it gets on my nerves. Though I love it, but it pulls so much from other areas of my life that it creates an
Okay,
imbalance.
so you're in physical therapy because some things are damaged. You're trying to you're not in a negative position. You're trying to get yourself to zero so you can move forward.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes,
so might I ask, what is it that you're healing in
I have
physically?
a nerve thing going on in my elbow.
Okay, so it would be possible for you to, the most important thing you could do are things like stretching and walking,
Mhm.
you know, to raise your energy level. If you want to change your behaviors, and saying I need to heal is at least partially saying, were I healed, I would be doing these things. But right now I'm not healed, so I'm doing these things. So that you've got some sort of an objective measure. I would be writing 5 pages a day. I would be dancing on weekends. I would be traveling. Define how your life would be different if you had this set up. That gives you some nice objective goals. So one of the things you need to do, or that is useful to do, is to raise your energy level. So it's like I have these new habits that I want to do. Let me define clearly what these habits would be. Let me raise my energy level, practice the new habits, fail successfully, because you'll
Mhm.
always fall off the horse.
Mhm.
Readjust and start over again. So it's define what you want to be different, define how you want it to be, raise your energy level, practice the new behaviors, fail successfully, and start over. That's your loop, right? So, what could you do to raise your energy level?
I have to get rid of a lot of old energy. I have old journals, old clothes. Getting rid of things for me gives me that boost. And more than a boost, like you said, it raises my energetic vibration.
Okay,
So I
so
have to
that's on
unload
the
old stuff.
psychological level, perhaps the
Mhm.
spiritual level. The primary drivers of energy are physical in
Okay.
terms of this way of looking at it, and that would be exercise, rest, and nutrition.
Hmm.
Exercise, rest, and nutrition. So, in the arena of exercise, are you getting 20 minutes of aerobic exercise 3 times a week, let's say?
No, no, but I love the track and I have a gym membership and I like to go sit in the sauna and all of those things. So I can, now that the summer is here, like today is the last day of school, so I can get on track. But the challenge is, what do I do once it's time to go back to work? So I have to
Okay.
figure out a
So
way to
you,
do that.
so are you saying that when you go back to work, you won't have time to exercise?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. So basically, it, allow me to ask you, you're saying you don't have an hour a week to yourself? Is that what you're
So
saying?
there are times when I can carve out an hour a week, and it's normally on a Sunday morning.
No, no, no. We're talking like 20 minutes a day. 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week. What stops
Yeah,
you from taking that time to yourself?
normally it's a lot going on, but I can begin to carve it out and
Yeah,
ritualize it.
you need to prioritize. It's like saying, I don't have enough time to eat, or I'm too busy driving to fill my tank with gas. That once you say, it's important for me to teach, I cannot teach at my highest level without protecting my energy.
You're
So
right.
therefore, so you prioritize that. This is you. You know, and it's not just about the students or the outside world.
Mhm.
Shikaja is in the midst of this. You have to take care of yourself first. So and then so 3 times a week, sweat. Okay, sweating 3 times a week, and that means exercise, not sitting in the sauna. Because you can sit in the sauna later, that's fine. But
Well, it's
exercise,
sweat. All sweat is valid.
well, it's all valid, but it's not the same as
It's true.
refining or tweaking your mitochondria in your cells for greater energy. That if you feel like you have a resistance to exercise, you want to look at that.
Mhm.
Why don't I want to exercise? There will be reasons for that. Everybody knows that healthy babies crawl, healthy animals want to get out and take a walk. We knew that as children, but we can start losing that along the way. So ask yourself, if you say there is some reason I don't want to exercise for 30 minutes 3 times a week, or 20 minutes 3 times a week, I don't want to do it. Look at it. Tell yourself the truth. Okay. So the second thing then is your diet. The diet that you eat contributes hugely to the amount of energy that you have. So
Mhm.
how is your diet?
It's not very good right now. Like I said, because of work, what you said earlier about not having time to eat, I have run around for days, like not really eating much.
Okay.
And
So
it
it
kind of
sounds
affects
like the
the decision.
problem is that you need to organize better. Because if you say, when I'm working, I don't eat and I don't exercise, then what you're saying is, I'm killing myself to earn a paycheck.
uh, Essentially. But I feel like some of it might be my level of organization, some of it might be life demands. But what it means to me is that I have to make a shift. And like I said in the beginning, I have some repair work to do. And
Yeah.
being here is part of that repair
Good.
process.
So may I submit to you that if the more we care about you, the more we want you to take care of yourself.
For sure.
That
I
that
accept.
the more we want Chikaja to love herself and to protect herself from the energy vampires that will tell you to give and give and give until there is nothing left of you.
This is true. This is true. I
Yeah,
mean, on top of all of that, there's court and other life stuff. But you're right. Like I'm creating a shift, and some of it is physical, but some of it
hmm.
is thinking, and some of it is getting rid of some old stuff. Like I have mad purging to do, and I'm looking forward to having the time to do it this summer.
And how much sleep do you get?
I haven't gotten much sleep in the past couple of weeks. On an average, about maybe 5 hours.
Yeah, so you're getting, at least you're running a sleep deficit. You're not eating
Mhm.
properly, and you're not exercising. So there, right there, you can see very clearly in quantifiable terms the things that can stop you from raising your energy level, which stops you from being able to take on new habits. Because the reason you can't teach an old dog new tricks is that the old dog is tired.
This is
So if you want to develop new habits, let's raise your energy, and we can support you in that. And start having a goal. You may not be able to do it now, but within the next year, I would like for you to start thinking about how could I take just 1 hour a day back from the world in a year. Just consider it to be critical, because otherwise you're just working to pay your bills as
and
opposed to working to be joyful.
yeah, and some of that is living in America.
Some of it, but if there are other people living in America who manage to do this, then you can't blame America. That it makes it harder. Being black makes it harder. Being a woman makes it harder. If you're poor, it makes it harder. If you're disabled, it makes it harder. All those things are true. And at the core of it, the question is, who are you? Because the outside world cannot be responsible for your experience, or you will never be happy. If you're waiting for the outside world to change, you will never be happy.
I'm not
So
waiting for it to change. I'm just
Good.
living. I'm just living in a way that I feel like gives me a level of awareness of some of the energy that's present around me
Okay.
and how that impacts me. And it's not to say that this is what's going to make me happy or unhappy, because that's not true for me. But it does play a role.
Okay. So if you start with your physical and you say, I'm going to fix this, you will run into all the emotional and energetic and spiritual stuff that stands in your way. If you then say, so it's like, escape the meaning of life, escape suffering, embrace joy, and be of service in that order. So if you say, I need to get my physical together, if you do that, you will automatically shift your emotional and your mental stuff, because it's not possible. You'll have to organize, you'll have to do this, you'll have to do that. If you say, I'm going to get my emotions and my mind together, you can ignore your physical. There are plenty of people who will talk about being extremely evolved spiritually, and they're a mess physically because they don't have their root. So this is tough. But if you root there, and then it's safe to open your heart. It's not safe to open your heart until you've got your survival drive engaged, the part of you that can bare its teeth and say, leave me alone. This is my space. You need that place to protect you. Okay, otherwise, having an open heart is not safe, because there genuinely are predators in the world. There genuinely are people who will eat your heart if you leave it out for them. So, body, to engage that survival drive, that animal survival thing. Heart, because life without love is kind of meaningless. And then your mind for the strategy and the understanding, and then your sense of your spirit. What's more important to me than my own life? Contributing to others, helping the next generation, helping my people, helping your sisters, whatever that is. But in that order, take care of yourself, then open your heart, then seek to be of service. If you will follow that syntax, we can help you. We want to help you no matter what. But if you will do that, then I know how to guide people along that particular path. And I'd be delighted to do that. You come here, let us help you here, over on the Life Writing site, circle www.lifewrite.com, totally free. Is there anything specific that I can do for you today?
Well, you just gave me a lot to work with, and I appreciate it. I'm just happy to be here.
Fantastic. Well, we're happy you're here. So make sure to breathe. Like the most important thing is 5 times a day, 60 seconds of deep, slow diaphragmatic breathing, and read your goals twice a day.
Thank you.
If you'll start right there, I promise that we can leverage you to a position where you're getting more and more freedom and more joy.
Thank you. I'm going to say namaste. I have to get my daughter to the doctor. But
Namaste to you too. You take care.
You
so
too.
That's fun. And let's see, we might have time for one more question if anybody has one. Anybody have one more question for us? No? Okay. Well then, because we've got, oh, wait a minute.
And
Shell?
yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
My husband and I have just recently bought a beautiful piece of land, and as we're developing it as an off-grid homestead,
That's beautiful.
developing it into a bit of a center and with a studio and having various workshops and residential stuff. So I've been brainstorming about having some writers. I'm liking the word lodge, having a writer's lodge for maybe a week, maybe a month.
Or retreat.
From you and from the people here, if you were to attend such a thing, what type of activities, what things would you find essential that you must be there? What would be ideal? Any
Well, I would say
that
that
appeals to you?
if the point was to help them move their careers forward,
Or their
then
art?
yes, you want both a space in which they can create, and you would want to provide them with role models. So it would be a matter of having the right people there to help coach them, and also creating an environment that is very pleasant. That would be the two things that would be important from my point of view. That when it's time for them to work, no stress. You're providing a nice environment, good food, whatever. And there's someone who is inspiring them and leading workshops or whatever. So most of these things are some combination of that. It's a very nice place, and they have interesting people coming in every year to guide the workshops.
That's one model. I was veering more towards, I guess, more mature artists who are coming and they would just have the isolation of dedicating a week or a month and being in
In which
private.
case, then
When I speak for a moment, each cabin would have a desk, and perhaps once a day, once every few days, you would get together with the group, share some of your draft, what you're working on. Plus, and some people would be open to feedback. If it was a script, you could have people sharing, doing a script reading for them, or bring in professional actors.
look, this is what I would suggest.
Workshop that
Someone who is
that
doing
facilitated.
find someone who is doing something like this, and you like their program, and model what they're doing. There are many different models that have succeeded. If this is something you're going to be investing your time and energy in, I would suggest finding a successful model and do that. Okay?
That's one way of going. I'm open to looking at what is the outcome desired by the participants and designing something to accomplish that.
Yes, and you can do that. But all I can say is that every conceivable combination has been tried, unless you come up with something that's totally radical, in which case you might be very successful or it might not work. All I can say is that from my position, find somebody who's already doing what you want to do and figure out what they've done. And that way you're going to miss a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I guess I've seen some of that already, and one person I'm consulting with already has given a very good suggestion. And
Okay, as long as they're getting the results that you want, be sure they're getting the results that you hope to get for these people. You're looking for something that gets a particular set of results.
that moves them forward in their writing,
Yeah.
towards whatever their aspiration is, whether that's financial or artistic or if it's just a hobby, the pleasure of having.
I will tell you one thing: the more specific
Like
you
the
are, the easier it's going to be to satisfy them. That if you
sorry,
try to do all things for all people, you're less likely to succeed than if you say, I would like to do a workshop for women over 50 who want to get published. That's
yeah,
very straightforward.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Anyway, so formulate.
Workshop isn't the right word. I
Well,
want to do some workshops, but this vision that I have is really not a workshop. It's more of a residency
mhm.
of artists sharing with one another.
And once again, there are a lot of those. I would
Yeah,
suggest that you clarify your intent, how you want people to feel when they're driving home,
yeah.
and what they're doing there, and write that down as simply as possible. Write it down,
Which
and
is
then begin to figure it out.
and coming to a group of writers like this and asking what 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 would you want to be essential? What would you be a part of it? So that's
Hmm.
part that I'm doing right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. You bet. Okay, so that is it for today. So what I would like for everybody to do is to unmute yourselves and say goodbye so we can have a great weekend. And remember, we will not be doing this next Friday because we're going to be in the belly of the beast. So everybody say
Bye.
bye.
And I won't be here the
Yay!
week after either.
Bye.
So
Fuck,
Goodbye,
goodbye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Great.
Have a great
And
weekend,
I'd like to
everyone.
close this out today, as I always do, with the expression that says that the divinity within me salutes and acknowledges the divinity within each and every one of you. Namaste. Take care. Have a great week.
that's
See you in 2 weeks. Wish me well. Bye bye.
A great shoot.